what I'll be teaching you guys today is something called an arithmetic progression. So the first thing you guys should be asking yourself is, what is an arithmetic progression, or AP for short? An AP is just a special sequence of numbers, and it's special because it has something called a common difference. So if you guys look at this sequence of numbers here, 2, 5, 8, 11, etc., if I get this right term minus the left term, 5 minus 2, that gives me 3. If I get the right term minus the left term, 8 minus 5 also gives me 3. Notice here I have a common difference, so by definition, this sequence is an arithmetic progression. Okay? Similarly, if you guys look at this sequence of numbers here, 10, 5, 0, minus 5, minus 10, etc. If I get the right minus the left, 5 minus 10 is minus 5, right minus left, 0 minus 5 is also minus 5. I have a common difference, so once again, this thing here is an arithmetic progression. Okay? Now what I can do is I can generalize and say any AP in the world can be represented by this sequence here. A plus D, A plus 2D, etc., etc. A is always the first term in your sequence, and D is always the common difference. So what this sequence here means is, all I do is I start off with my first term A. To get my second term, I just get the previous term plus the common difference, so A plus D. To get my next term, it's the previous term, A plus D, plus the common difference, so A plus D again. That's how I get A plus 2D, etc., etc. Okay? So let's just revisit these two sequences of numbers again, and we just identify what's A and what's D. Okay? So looking at my first AP, A is always the first term in my sequence, so in this case, it is 2, okay? Now to properly find the common difference, it's always the right term minus the left term. So in this case, it is going to be 5 minus 2, which gives me 3, okay? Moving on to the next sequence, so my first term A is going to be 10 in this case. My second term, my common difference D, to properly find it, it's the right term minus the left term. So in this case, 5 minus 10 gives me minus 5. Okay? Now, what I want you guys to note is this. If your common difference is positive, that means if D is greater than 0, your sequence is going to be increasing. If your common difference is negative, meaning if D is less than 0, your sequence is going to be decreasing. Okay, now what I'm going to do with you guys with arithmetic progression is teach you guys all the formulas associated with it. So really there's 3 formulas, but today I'm only going to go through 2. So the first formula I'm going through with you guys is something called the TN formula. Now the TN formula just allows you to find a specific term in your sequence. So for example, if I told you guys to look at this sequence here and I said, find the 10th term. One way you guys can do it is literally write out all the numbers in your sequence and find the 10th term, but notice that is too long. So what I'm going to teach you guys is a shorter method through a formula. And the formula is Tn equals to A plus n minus 1D. A is the first term in the sequence. N is the term you want to find. So for example, if you want to find the 10th term, N is 10. If you want to find the 100th term, N is 100. And D is my common difference. Okay? Now, if you know what A, N, and D are, and you sub it into this formula, it'll give you Tn, which is your specific term. Okay? So let me just quickly prove it to you guys. Now, in order to prove the Tn formula, the first thing I'm going to write out is the general form of an AP. So remember, I'm always starting with my first term, which is A. Now to get my second term, it's the previous term plus the common difference, so plus D. Okay, and then to get the third term, it's the previous term plus the common difference, so I get 2D, so on and so forth. That means A is my first term, I'm going to call it T1. This one is my second term, T2. This one is my third term, T3. And what I want to find today is what Tn is equal to. Now, in order to do this, the first thing I ask myself is, with these three terms, what stays the same? So I notice every single term has an A, every single term has a plus D. You can think of this term as A plus 0D. Okay, so if all of these three terms have A plus D, that means this term Tn will also have A plus D. Okay, so I'll move this out a bit. Now, notice the only thing that changes is the number in front of D. Okay, now to find what the number in front of D is, I want you guys to look for a pattern. Okay, notice I have 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3. The number in front of D is always 1 less than the term number. Now in this case, my term number is n. 1 less than n is n minus 1. Okay, and that here is how I get the formula for Tn. Okay, now let's try and apply this formula to a question. So this question says, given 2, 4, 6, etc., find the 10th term. So here in this question, what you're given is a sequence. Now if in this sequence, I get the right term minus the left term, it's 2. Right minus left, that's also 2. If I have a common difference, this is an AP. And what the question wants me to find is the 10th term of an AP. In other words, they want me to find a specific term. Now the rule is, whenever the question asks you to find a specific term, you must use the Tn formula. So in this case, the first thing I write is the formula. So Tn equals to A plus n minus 1 D. And in order to use this formula, I need to know three things. So firstly, do I know A, my first term? Yes, that's 2. Next, do I know n? Well, I want to find the 10th term. So here, n is equal to 10. Lastly, do I know the common difference? Yes, I've already said that that is 2. Okay, once I know all three things, I can sub it into my formula. So I know that Tn in this case is 10. So T10 is equal to A, which is 2, plus n, which is 10, minus 1. The common difference is 2. Okay, so now if we just quickly evaluate it, guys, 10 minus 1 is 9. 9 times 2 is 18. 18 plus 2 is 20. So here my answer is 20. Okay, now with these types of questions, I always want you guys to have a conclusion. So in this case, I know that the 10th term is 20. Okay, so what I've done in this question is, by using my Tn formula, I have found that if I write out all the terms in this sequence and pick out the 10th term, the number is going to be 20. Okay, so what did you guys learn in this question? Two things. The first thing is, if the question gives you a sequence, identify what type of sequence you have yourself first, okay? Don't just assume it's an AP or whatever other sequence, right? So I know that because this question is under the section AP, you can assume this is an AP. But let's say you guys get this question in an exam. They won't specify what type of sequence you have, so it's good to get into the habit of identifying it yourself. That's the first thing, okay? Second thing is, if they want you to find a specific term in your AP, you have to use the Tn formula. Okay, so that's the first formula. Now moving on to the second formula. The second formula is just the sum formula. Okay, so like the name suggests, it allows you to find the sum of the first n terms of your sequence. So let's say you look at this sequence again, and I asked you to find the sum of the first 50 terms. That means you get 2 plus 4 plus 6 all the way to the 50th term. One way you can do it is grab your calculator and get 2 plus 4 plus 6, etc. But that's too long. So once again, I'm teaching you guys a quicker method through a formula. Now the formula says Sn equals to n over 2, bracket 2a plus n minus 1d. So to use this formula, I need to know n. So it's the sum of however many terms I want. So if I want the sum of the first 50 terms, n is 50. Sum of the first 5 terms, n is 5, okay? And once again, a is my first term, D is my common difference. All right, now if I know all three of these things and I sub it into my formula, it's going to give me Sn, which is the sum of my first n terms. Okay, just note what this means is I'm getting my first term plus the second term plus the third term all the way to the nth term. Okay, now the proof for this, guys, it's a bit long and tedious. In an exam, you will never be asked to prove this formula, so I'm not going to go through it with you guys. We're just going to jump through the questions right away. So the first question says, find the sum of 12 terms of -4, -2, 0, 2, etc., etc. Okay, so here, guys, you have a sequence of numbers. If I get the right minus to left, -2 plus 4 gives me +2. If I get right minus left, 0 plus 2, that gives me 2. I have a common difference. This is an AP. The question wants me to find the sum of an AP. So the rule is to find the sum, you're using your sum formula. Okay, so the first thing you write out is Sn equals to n over 2, bracket 2a plus n minus 1 d. Okay, to use this formula, once again, you need to know three things. So first off, do I know n? I want to find the sum of the first 12 terms. So here n is 12. A is my first term, which in this case is -4. D, my common difference in this case is 2. Right? Once I know all three things, I can sub it back into my formula. So when I do, I get n in this case is 12. So I sub in 12, and that's equal to 12 over 2 bracket 2a, which is -4, plus n, which is 12, minus 1 times the common difference, d, and that's 2. Okay, and what you guys can do is just sub this entire thing into the calculator and you will end up with some answer. I'm just going to call it a box. Okay, and then don't forget your conclusion. You will say, therefore, the sum is whatever number you get. Okay, so here what I've done is by using my sum formula, I have found that if I get -4, -2, plus 0, plus 2, all the way to 12 terms, my answer will be whatever this box is here. Okay, so remember in this question, guys, if you want to find the sum of an AP, you have to use this sum formula. Okay, now what I'm actually going to teach you guys is there's a second sum formula. All right, now in order to show you guys this formula, I'm just going to quickly prove it for you. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do to prove it is start off with the sum formula we already know. So I already know that the sum of the first n terms is going to be n over 2 bracket 2a plus n minus 1 d. And what I'm going to do is with this 2a here, break it up, so that is a plus a. Okay, so this is equal to n over 2 bracket 2a becomes a plus a, and I rewrite the entire thing plus n minus 1 d. Now, I want you guys to look at this thing here. What does this bit remind you of? Isn't that just the Tn formula I just taught you guys before? Yeah? So what I can do is replace this entire thing with Tn. Okay? So I can rewrite this and say I have n over 2 bracket a plus this entire thing is Tn. And the last thing I'm going to do is sub Tn to be L instead. And this thing here is my second sum formula. Okay? So here this formula says Sn equals to n over 2 bracket a plus L. To use this formula, you first need to know n, the sum of how many terms you want to find, a, the first term, and the important thing is you need to know L, which is the last term of your sequence. Okay, so now that I've taught you guys two formulas for Sn, it's important for you guys to understand when to use which formula. You will only ever use this formula if you're given the last term in your sequence. If you're not given the last term, you use this formula here. Okay, so let's go through the last example. So here the question says, find 2 plus 4 plus all the way to 20. right? So what this question here says is, if I have a sequence of numbers 2, 4, all the way to 20, and I want to find the sum of it, okay? So I'll just quickly fix this question up, and I'll write 2 plus 4 plus 6 all the way to 20, okay? So here I just have a 6. If I get the right minus the left, I have 2. Right minus left, I have 2. This is an AP. They want me to find the sum of an AP. Now, because we have two sum formulas, we can either use, we can use whichever one. But remember, my rule was you are going to use the A plus L formula if you're given the last term. If not, you're using this formula here, okay? So in this case, guys, notice the question gives me the last term in my sequence. So what I'm going to do is use this formula instead, okay? So I'll just move over here. To use this formula, I'm just going to write Sn equals 2 n over 2 bracket A plus L. Now, to use this formula, first I need to know n. Now, n is the sum of however many terms I want to find. Notice in this case, the question doesn't tell me what n is. So the first thing I'm just going to write is n equals to question mark, okay? Now, do I know A? My first term is going to be 20. And do I know L, my last term? Oh, sorry, A, my first term is 2. L, my last term is going to be 20. Now, notice the problem here, guys. I need to use this formula, but I don't know what n is. So in order to get my answer, I need to first find n. So that's my new aim, yeah? Now my aim, I'm just going to write it, is to find what n is, okay? So n is just an unknown. In order to find an unknown, you need to look for a condition. Now, a condition is information the question has to provide for you. So if you look at this question, what am I given? Now, the trick is, guys, if the question gives you the last term in your sequence, that is a condition, okay? When they're giving you the last term, they are giving you a specific term. In other words, they are giving you Tn. Okay, so with this condition here, how can I find n? Well, whenever you see or hear Tn, you think back to your Tn formula, okay? So the first thing I'm going to write is the Tn formula. So Tn equals to A plus bracket n minus 1d, and then I sub in everything I know, okay? So Tn is my term. I know my term is 20, so I sub Tn to be 20. Now this is equal to A, my first term, which is 2, plus n. That's what I want to find, so I leave it alone, so n minus 1. D, my common difference, I have already said to be 2. Okay, so notice what I've done is by using my condition, I form an equation purely in terms of n. And I'm happy with that, right? Because now I can solve for n. So to make n the subject, the first thing I'm going to do is chuck the 2 over. So 20 minus 2 gives me 18, and that's equal to n minus 1 times 2. Okay, I'm running out of space, so I'll go over here. Next, get 18 divided by 2, which gives me 9, and that's equal to n minus 1. Making n the subject by chucking the 9 over. 9 plus 1 gives me 10. Okay, so I found the value of n. What was the whole purpose of that? Now that I know what n, a, and l are, I can sub everything into my formula and answer the question. Okay, so now subbing everything in, I now have s. I know n is equal to 10, and that is equal to n, which is 10, divided by 2, bracket a, that's 2, plus l, that's 20. Okay, so if you guys sub this into your calculator, you are going to get some answer. And this answer here tells me this answer tells me what happens if I get 2 plus 4 plus 6 all the way to 20, okay? And then therefore, always provide a conclusion. You would say the sum is whatever, okay? So what was slightly hard about this question here compared to the previous question was, yes, both questions required you to find the sum, but the problem in question 2 was you didn't know what n is. So the first thing you had to do was sidetrack to find n. That means to find an unknown, you need a condition, okay? Now the trick here was, if the question gives you the last term, they're giving you a specific term Tn. So write down the Tn formula, sub everything in, get n, and then you're able to answer your final question, okay? Another thing I want to emphasize is, remember now guys, there's two sum formulas, so just know when to use which one. You only use the second formula, a plus l, when you're given the last term, which is what I did in this question here. Okay, so what you guys have learned today is, first off, what is an arithmetic progression? Remember, an AP is just a special sequence of numbers that has a common difference. And there's two formulas associated with it. The first one is the Tn formula. It just allows you to find a specific term in your sequence. The formula is Tn equals to a plus n minus 1d. The second formula is the sum formula. It allows you to find the sum of the first n terms. In this case, there were two sum formulas. So Sn equals to n over 2 bracket 2a plus n minus 1d, or Sn equals to n over 2 bracket a plus l. Okay, so I hope you guys have learned something from an AP and how to apply all the formulas that I've taught today, and I'll see you guys next time.